Hi, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to week 7. This is about the midpoint. So this week is going to be a review week and we will have our midterm. So for our announcements this week, I'm going to talk about the midterm, just do a quick check-in about your research proposal, do a little bit of feedback from last week's discussion, remind you about the Chapter 9 lecture is available, and then give you your checklist for the week. So the midterm. The midterm is available in iCollege and it is due next Sunday or this Sunday, October 9th. So here are the chapters that you need to review. All the chapters that we have done so far. We didn't read chapter 3 and then chapter 9. I did a lecture on that one. So I want you to watch the video if you haven't, but there's not going to be questions over that chapter. So those are the chapters. So it is available in iCollege. So when you're looking for it, I'll put the link in this week's announcement. That's where you will take the midterm in iCollege. So it is 20 questions. 10 of those will be multiple choice questions. 10 of them will be short answer questions. Just very similar to what we do on perusal with the review questions and the multiple choice, same format, just half and half over all the chapters that we've read so far. So you have, when you take it in iCollege, you need to wait to start it until you have time to finish, because once you start, you have 3 hours to finish. So what I would recommend doing this week is kind of decide what day or what part of the day in the week you want to take it and study before then. And then once you take it, you'll be ready to go. So again, you can take it at any point between now and Sunday. It's up to you and what works best for your schedule, but do make sure that you have enough time to start. Now, it's set for 180 minutes to complete it. Of course, you can look back in your text, in your notes as you are working. And if you have any issues with the time or are worried about that, please reach out to me via email and we can talk about that. Um, and it is set up to where if you go over time, go ahead and finish. But it will just tell me your time and we'll talk about that if that happens. So of course you may use your book and your notes and perusal and everything that we have compiled so far on the midterm. So please do use that when you are taking the midterm. Now, how to study. So there is going to be review questions and multiple choice practice questions and perusal. Now, you know that the multiple choice questions are optional. I strongly recommend that you at least look at them this week because they are over the same topics that are going to be covered on the midterm. So even though you don't have to do those multiple choice, I do recommend that you do them just to practice, and that will kind of point you in the right direction in terms of what to study. So both of those will be in perusal. And then there is also a review lecture and perusal as well, going through the big ideas and kind of giving you some tips and pointing out the things that you want to study, along with the review slides that are included there too. And then there is going to be an optional Zoom on Thursday. So if you have questions or want to come to study together or review or ask any questions, that will be a good time to come and talk and study during that time too. So those are the details about the midterm. Please email me if there's anything else, and I'll share that with the rest of the class as well. So here are the items to study for each chapter. So you might want to screenshot this or get a little grab of what to study for each of the chapters, but this also corresponds with what I put for the review questions. So for the review questions, we have all of these topics covered, but this is just showing you where to focus your attention when you're studying. Okay, a quick reminder about your, okay. So, okay, yes, the research proposal. So a quick reminder about your research proposal that is coming up next. So this will be your final research issue, final question, your potential design, quantitative, qualitative, or mixed, and then your data collection methods that you think that you'll be using. And then also the citation for 3 references that you plan to include in your literature review. And I will this week make a little template for you so you can use that when you are submitting that assignment. Okay, so some feedback from last week's discussion over chapters 12 and 13 about a strong experimental design and quasi-experimental design. So I want to go over the multiple choice questions with this and just review with some of the topics. So when we're talking about experimental control, that is eliminating the differential influence that extraneous variables can have. So in the chapters, they talked about how extraneous variables, especially when you are doing an issue like education, extraneous variables are going to exist. And so sometimes you if you have them in your sample that you are using, that might still reflect what's happening in the population. So in that sense, it's okay. So when we are controlling for those, we are only controlling them if they cause a differential influence on the dependent variable. So if they skew the data in a way, then that is what we're controlling for. So when you use random assignment, which is part of strong experimental design or matching, making sure that the random assignment is randomly assigning participants into the group, either the control group or the experimental group. And then matching is making sure that the people in the group are similar level, ability, gender, whatever it is that is the focus. And the purpose of that is to equate the groups. Now, these chapters talked a lot about the different methods that you can use to help control for confounding variables that will have a differential impact on the dependent variable. And so in this instance, the way that they're controlling is by limiting participation to people only in one group. So in this one, they are worried about socioeconomic status being a potential extraneous variable. So to control for any confounding impact that they might have, they only chose students who were from a low SES home. And this is holding the extraneous variables constant. Now, you can also, there's several different methods to control, and we're going to talk about one of those in the next question as well. And so just to kind of look at these multiple choice questions, so both 1 and 2 have eliminating the dependent variable. You would never do that in experimental design because the dependent variable is how you measure whether or not whatever the intervention was or what's happening with the independent variable in the treatment group, if it worked. So that would never be an answer that you would choose. Okay. So when you have a characteristic of an experiment, that's when you are manipulating the variables in a controlled environment. The independent variable is the treatment that is being given to one group, and the dependent variable is how you are measuring the effectiveness of that. Here, the focus on the inside or emic perspective, that is more closely associated with a qualitative approach where you have like a firsthand perspective of the participants. Naturally occurring uncontrolled. Experimental design is very controlled because that is necessary to find evidence of causation. And then observing what's happening in a real world setting, that is also similar, that is also consistent with what you would see in qualitative design. So the key difference with quasi-experimental design and strong experiments is the lack of random assignment. And this is really common in education and in all disciplines, because the practicality of assigning participants to an equal group in settings like schools, hospitals, workplaces can be really challenging. And so that's why quasi-experimental design is often used in those cases where it's not possible to have random assignment. And so that is when the researchers will use another means to test for any alternative hypothesis. Now, this is what I wanted to come back to when with this other question about how to control technique. So one control technique is to hold the extraneous variable constant, meaning that you limit enrollment to people only in that group. But another way is to use statistical control. And so if you need to equate non-equivalent groups because you couldn't do random assignment, you could use pretests and you could use that to equate the group statistically. And this is the statistical test that you would do, and COVA. And we're going to get into more about that in the second half of the semester as well. Some more inferential statistics that you would do to analyze quantitative data. Okay, and then lastly, in this quasi-experimental study, this is when something happens that affects a dependent variable in one group versus the other. So an example of this would be maybe it's two classrooms side by side. One classroom is doing a particular socio-emotional learning curriculum and the other class is not. And maybe they are taking a survey. Once you watch the questionnaire chapter, you'll see maybe they're using a pre-existing survey on empathy in children. And so if something happens, like let's say when they are collecting, when they're giving students that questionnaire after the study, at the end of the study, if maybe there's like a fire drill that only affects one class, maybe the class, or even maybe the classes take it at different times. One class takes it at 9 a.m. and the other class takes it at 10 a.m. just because of schedules, and there's a fire drill with one of the groups. That would be an event that impacted the dependent variable. And so that is talking about history. So history is referring to events, unexpected events that happen during the study when the data is being collected that impact the dependent variable. And maturation effect, so that would be when the participants have matured, and so that's why there's a difference, matured or advanced or gotten a stronger skill set in an area outside of the independent variable. And so that is what that is. Okay, so here is your checklist for this week. So by Sunday, of course, you'll complete the midterm. Now, you still do have a perusal this week. There's no new reading, but do go in there, watch the review lecture, try to answer a question or two, take a look at the multiple choice questions. So this perusal will be a great way for you to study. Now, if you haven't watched the Chapter 9 lecture on questionnaires, you can also do that this week, and I will link that in the announcements. It is located in perusal number 6 if you at the very end after the multiple choice questions. So I'm not sure if everyone saw it, but that's where it is as well. Again, we have our research proposal check-in coming up, and then the article critique. And let me know if a couple people have let me know that they had some trouble finding it. So let me know if you are having any trouble. And then we do have a Zoom discussion this week. So those are the announcements. So have a great week studying. Please email me if you have any questions or want me to explain anything before you start that midterm, and come to the Zoom if you're able, and we can study together there. So talk to you soon. Bye.